and welcome to the very first edition of the TARHub Podcast. We're so excited to have you with us for this premiere episode, coming to you through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and through our YouTube channel, where you can even see all of our pretty faces, and mine. For this first episode, we will be doing a deep dive into season 37, and what an incredible season it has been. We're going to be discussing everything, the route, the teams, the twists, and also maybe discuss what we might have done a little differently. The aim of the TARHub Podcast is to discuss everything about this show that we all love. Now, we won't be airing regularly, but we will aim to post a season summary episode like this for each season as they air. And we're also planning on doing some deep dive episodes into particular topics like the history of the show, favorite season retrospectives, who we might want to see return for a future returnee All-Stars season, perhaps even a bit about how TARHub works on Discord and how we follow the teams and production as they film the show. We're also hoping to get some guest hosts on in the future, fans who are also part of our TARHub Discord community, and also perhaps some race alumni if they're willing to be seen on a video with me. Maybe I can pull the Kiwi card and get Phil on the show too. I wrote that as a little funny sort of gag, so do laugh at that one, because I'm from New Zealand and so is Phil. Enough from me. Let's find out more about the rest of the crew. And first off, we're going to start with Ethan. So, Ethan is coming to us from Orlando, Florida. My first question is, what was the first season that you watched?
Okay, yeah, I think, as far as I remember, the first season I watched was season 23. We were on vacation and I was sick in bed and needed something to do. And then I found The Amazing Race on streaming. And so I believe this was just like when season 26 was filming. But I've watched season 23 first and then just got absolutely hooked and watched so many seasons since. And it's just been amazing. Amazing as the name suggests.
So what would you say is your favorite season?
My favorite season is season 27. I don't even know exactly why I like it so much, but I like Visits to Argentina, and it has some great legs in Argentina. Just really strong second half of the season. I love the legs in Poland and a great penultimate leg and what happened there with Tiffany and Krista. It's the season I think I've actually rewatched the most because I just enjoy it so much. But I've seen almost every season, but that sticks out to me. I like it.
And that's a good segue into, you know, what draws you to the show? Why do you like watching it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think because I love to travel, and so it's that obviously the feeling of travel or experiencing new places, new destinations, doing new things, but also that dynamic of working together with your teammate, of overcoming things, and it really is all dependent on how you work with your teammate because you're spending 24/7 with them traveling. Because traveling is such it's as fun as it is, it's very stressful, and so overcoming that, and I love seeing all of the amazing destinations that they go to and live vicariously through it and through my own travels.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll move on to Dom. Dom comes to us from somewhere in France, which is a lot of fans' favorite country.
Least favorite as well.
Yeah. Anyway, the same questions for you. When did you start watching the show?
It's a good question. I think my first season was season 14, but it was long enough ago that it's a bit blurry. Maybe it was 15. I can't remember. But yeah, I've always had a soft spot for 14. I think because it was the very first one I saw. So that's probably what I'd pick as my favorite.
And why? What drew you to the show when you started watching it? What was it that made you excited by it?
The travel elements for sure. It was I was planning a big trip before that, and it was just such a huge back catalogue of seasons to dive into. So it was just the perfect thing to obsess over.
And next up, we've got Jade, who comes to us from Los Angeles. Can we break it down further? No, we won't do that. We won't give your home location away to the rabid fans. But from Los Angeles, Jade, same question. What was the first season you watched?
Yeah, so I remember being back in college at the time. And so the first season I watched all the way through was 13. I remember being at a friend's house and seeing episodes before that, but not a full season. So I would say the most memorable season that I remember watching was 13. And now I've gone back and watched every season, most of them multiple times because I enjoy it that much. So, yeah.
And what drew you to the show? What was it that made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, so I mean, like most people, the travel, the destinations, but really actually probably the thing that's kept me the most interested is the relationships. When it comes down to it, I think it really is a relationship show. They've done a really good job over the years showing different dynamics. And also I've loved seeing teams start at the start line and looking at them, maybe the underdog team, someone that doesn't look as strong. And when I tell people about the race, they're like, oh, you have to be fast, you have to be strong, you have to be young. And so I love, certain seasons like 25 where you have the ice cream scientists that, looking at them, they're going up against the strong, smart dentists or, the wrestlers are on that season too, right? The wrestlers are on that season.
Yeah.
They go up against the wrestlers. Like they're not going to beat those teams, but use different skill sets. So it gives someone like me who, some hope that, okay, I could do something like that. I didn't have to be a star athlete in school. I could be the theater nerd and I could be, the bookworm or whatever it might be and go out and do something like the race and potentially win it. So I like that kind of hope of rooting for that underdog team.
Love it. And what would you say is your favorite season if you had to pick one?
Named a lot of people from 25, probably because that is my favorite. And my husband and I, we watched together too. So I introduced him to the race. So that was, I think, one of the first seasons we watched together. So I always go back to that one. I've met a couple of the people from season 25, the firefighters. And I think anytime you meet racers in person, you go back and you watch it and you get it holds a special spot. So I'm like, I know those guys. They're so nice, So yeah.
And then to answer my own questions, if anyone cares, which I'm sure they don't. But
we care.
Okay.
Yeah, let's pretend. But the first season I watched was actually, the first full season was actually season 4. I can remember it being on TV and sort of falling in love with it. But I do have memories of the latter part of season 3. I can remember seeing adverts on our local TV channel for sort of the Vietnam, with the basket challenges, the basket boat and the basket bikes. I can remember adverts for that. So I remember watching the last couple of episodes of season 3, and then I properly got into it season 4. And from there I was hooked. And I've loved the show ever since. It's been a really big part of my life. And as like you guys, I've watched them all multiple times. My favorite season is probably 5. Just because the route, the route is incredible. It's certainly not, anyway, we'll get into that later, but it's certainly not something one might see nowadays. But yeah, and the cast as well. There's so many iconic teams. It was so cool seeing your audition clip with Chip and Kim, who are one of my all-time favorite teams. I love Chip. Spoken to him a couple of times through the interweb. And so that was really cool to see. And why did I start watching the show? I've already touched on that, but really it's like you, the relationships, they always fascinate me, and seeing how people cope with pressure and some sort of not coping as well. I find that really interesting because it is a massively stressful situation just to have all of that pressure on you. And also the travel, obviously. I do love traveling. And so, when I was younger, watching the show starting out, just sort of seeing all these incredible places was really amazing.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I imagine probably for you, where you here's this host, Phil, from New Zealand too. So that's kind of a cool, I feel
because you're
related
to him, aren't you?
He's my brother.
That's right. Yes.
He doesn't know it. He doesn't know it. I am going to soon present him with that.
There you go.
Yeah, I might get blocked, but that's all right.
I once was right behind him at the airport, and I was much younger, and just like the shy part of me just couldn't go up to him and say hi, and it was my biggest regret.
man.
And then I sent him a message once. I said I was behind you once. I should have said hi. He said, and he responded back, or whoever runs his Instagram. Who knows? I don't know if it's him. My husband and I have a debate. Is it really him responding back, or does he have his people? But he's like, oh, you should have said hi. Next time, say hi. I'm like, oh, there better be a next time.
There you go. Let's hope. Absolutely.
Yeah, he came to my local shopping center, and back in I think like 2005, he wrote a book called No Opportunity Wasted, and he was in New Zealand, and he came to the local mall, and I met him then, and I was very, very young, like pretty sure I was only like, what was I, like 11 or something, and I was a bit like you. I was sort of like standing there like a stunned mullet, sort of not really knowing what to ask, and anyway,
I've seen Phil on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, every time he says, if you think what it takes to win the Amazing Race, apply. I'm like, oh, he's speaking right to me, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember I can't because I'm not in the US, but we'll get over it in the end.
Yep. There we go. Okay. Well, we got lots to talk about, don't we?
Look at these graphics.
I know. Hopefully we don't have to pay them.
I feel like they're too professional for us.
I know.
They're too good.
Usually after me. Look at them. Gosh, that's a beautiful shot.
It is,
So-
isn't it?
Were you guys pleased when you saw the initial cast?
I was very pleased. Very, very pleased, just because I'm always a huge advocate, and I'm consistently moaning about diversity across all aspects, which does include age. And I just found that a lot of casts were starting to get skew a bit younger, particularly from around 25 onwards. There was a period there from 25 to 32. And I love the 32 cast, but if you look at it, it's basically Papa Jerry, and then the next oldest is like 39. And I was like, well, that's not really a full range. And so when I look at this group, seeing all of the parent-child teams, and quite a few of the parents are over 60. I think Melinda's 65. It's just great to see all different ages being represented. It's something I sort of have been droning and moaning on to the casting team about, and I think they might have listened. So there we go.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it sort of adds a better dynamic to the race when you do have age representation. Then it's not the challenges. You can see how different teams approach those challenges depending on their hey, there we go. There's our team mascot.
Sorry, she was being noisy. She wanted to
that's
get the
okay.
team.
We understand.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on I think, because I believe when you watch it, you see how they approach things differently depending on how old or how young they are, and sort of it shows a different side to how task or detour or roadblock might be chosen or approached, or the decisions that are made. And I agree. I think it does make it more intriguing, more interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think you definitely saw that with Melinda and Erica. They were really smart throughout the season on knowing that they were not going to be the fastest team. So they had to play a little bit more strategically. They even built a little alliance with Jeff and Pops. And so I really gave them an A+ for thinking outside the box on what extra steps they could take to get ahead.
Yeah, that moment in the I think it was the Hong Kong airport on their way to Osaka, where Erica and Jeff Jr. Both maneuvered their way. That to me was such a old school moment. Seeing a couple of teams, I think Bernie and Carrigan and Scott and Laurie just sort of saying, okay, we're not going to get on, going through, and then them sort of persevering. I thought that was a really old school kind of moment. It was quite cool to see early on in the season. So
yeah, those are the moments I love to see, and when teams use their tenacity like that to sort of see, how can we get an advantage here? It's entirely of their own creation. It's not something that's baked into the race. It's something that this is something, we have an idea, let's pursue it and see if we can get ahead in it. And it did work for them that leg for sure.
I think too, attitude, like Jeff and Pops, they also got ahead in another airport line, if I recall, just by
I think that
right?
was buying the train tickets too.
Oh
Machine
yes,
Guns,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. And I think charm and just personality can go a long way. I think even when you're with like your taxi driver, if I feel like people feed off your energy. So if you're excited, I think I saw it multiple times with Jack and Carson too throughout the season, that they just had good energy, and I think the locals feed off that. They like that, and so
Absolutely.
it just makes your experience better too, even if you're in the back of the pack.
Yep.
And also, like with the age diversity thing, it just creates lots of really awesome moments, and also different physicalities as well, dare I say it. Like, I'm not, I don't have a six pack, and I'm not a professional wrestler like Brooke and Robbie, but that's as you were mentioning before, it's really interesting to see all different physicalities, all different abilities, and people overcoming. Like in the very first episode, the moment with Jackie and Lauren, who I think are, here's the little stats nerd, but I think they're the most mature all-female team since like season 12, and we're on season 37. So it shows that there's been a long period where they weren't sort of casting that sort of team. And so often it's that they provide so much, they've got such a depth of experience. And that moment with Lauren climbing to the top of that bamboo tower was really epic. Rewatching it the other night when I did my binge watch of the season ahead of this, it still sticks out as a really awesome moment from the season. And they were the first ones out. So
I love their positivity and how they, even though they knew they had some physical limitations, they made the most of their own personal experience and made the most of their own race, and didn't run it comparing themselves to anybody else.
I loved it as well as having some older individual racers. It wasn't necessarily just them that brought that average age up to be like the oldest cast we've ever seen. It was also sort of the bulk of the pack moved up a little bit as well. So you had like Han and Holden were like the kids of the cast almost.
Mm-hmm.
They were like they really stood out as like as like the anomaly. But whereas in seasons past, you probably would have had 3 or 4 or 5 of those. Sort of
that's true.
Teams in that age bracket.
And I think it helped Han and Holden. I think that they really stand out to me. And also it helps that they made it through the whole race, but they really stand out to me, probably for that reason. They just, their dynamic was so interesting. Their sort of youthful energy, and them sort of trying to find a new part of their relationship after Han she's about 4 years older than him, I think, and she's gone on to.
I think that's correct.
I think they said they hadn't really spent much time together for like the last 7 years because of probably school and wherever life takes you, right? So it's coming back together and trying to figure out how to work with one another.
Quickly, who would you say was your favorite of the season?
I know Ethan's going to say the same as me. So.
Well, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Nick and Mike.
But
mine, I don't know if it's the same reason. Mine was just, I love a team that just never gives up, and just hearing their casting story about, trying for 7 years, and, they said, you might get and this is just, for life too, you might get a million no's, but it only takes one yes. And so,
absolutely,
if there's something you really want, keep going for it. So
that's what I really respected about them, is not giving up and not taking no for an answer. And when they knew that they wanted to be on the show, and they kept applying, even though they hit some roadblocks along the way. And it just, when they hit those roadblocks, they learned how to overcome them the next time. And I just also loved because when you looked at them at the start line, you would almost think of them as being one of the strongest teams. Yeah. But in the show, there were lots of moments where they were falling behind, or where they sort of taking much longer than other teams on certain tasks. But just to watch them sort of realize, okay, maybe they had approached it, especially for fans, maybe had approached it with more viewing the race a certain way, but then adapting to it as they realized the realities of it. I really enjoyed that, and their relationship as brothers. And I have a great relationship with my brother, and I could imagine us being on the race and how that would, so to watch them, and they had one of the most incredible eliminations on the race. That's tough one to watch, but I think if I was on the race and I didn't win, I think I'd want to be eliminated. So.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh,
Who was your favorite, Tom?
I'm awful at picking favorites. I mean, there's, especially with a cast like this, I feel like there's reasons to love almost every team, and yeah, I know you've got a gun to my head, but I can't pick one. I just can't pick it. I've got about 6 or 7 favorites. But yeah.
So you're going to move to Switzerland across the border, in other words.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the right home for me. Yeah.
We'll forgive you. I really, picking up on what you said about the way they were eliminated, I'm just going to throw it out there. There was a lot of teams from this season particularly, but then also after doing my binge rewatch, I was going through some of the ones most recent, back to maybe 32, 33. There's a lot of teams that have really interesting eliminations, like Scott and Laurie, obviously with the U-turn vote, Pops and Jeff with that sort of foot race in Dubai, obviously Nick and Mike, that's a really interesting for elimination. And then I got thinking about out-of-towners from season 35, was it? They ended up getting eliminated in that hall.
Absolutely. One of the saddest scenes in Amazing Race history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The party where everybody had left.
With the decor, yeah.
Exactly. Everyone had gone. So there's actually a lot of teams from this season, even the car crash in the finale for Han and Holden. Like that set them back hugely.
Absolutely. And I think this is probably the season with the most car accidents. Because were rear-ended in Portugal, and then Jonathan and Anna, who accidentally drove into the ditch in
that's right
area, and there were lots of moments
and
like that.
And there were some been shown, like Scott and Laurie mentioned in their podcast, about how their taxi, that leg where they got eliminated, their taxi hit a bird and they had to stop and get that situated.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Yep, very true.
I mean,
that's so true, because they didn't even make it. Yeah, they turned up last to that first clue, which obviously didn't help. And the edit didn't show that, which is always interesting when you get these little tidbits of what doesn't actually make that final edit, because that set them back hugely, as you say. So anyway, I think there's a lot of teams from this season that have a good story to return.
Even with 90 minutes, we can't seem to fit all these awesome storylines in. So I can't imagine what stuff was left out previously.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we move on to discussing the routes and the different things that our teams had to face?
Let's do it.
Going to the route, and we have our route map. There we go.
Doing a binge of it, the route stands out, actually. It really stands out with how interesting it is.
I agree.
I think that they went to some really interesting places, and there was lots of, like you had the modernism of Hong Kong and Osaka, and then that older sort of Japanese culture with Kyoto. Then they moved to sort of the jungle and Bali, and then they sort of do a jungle leg and then a beach leg, and then you've got the desert, and then Bulgaria, the countryside, transitioning to the city of Sofia. I don't know. I thought it was really,
and even in France, even in the legs that we had like we had there in France, is that we saw some places in France we'd never seen before, and more of a rural side of it, which I really appreciated myself.
Yeah, and I love in like in Bulgaria and France and even Naples, where you're more in the city and you're getting to interact with some of the locals. Especially in Bulgaria, one of my favorite scenes was when the locals are trying to come help Jonathan and Anna get their car out of the ditch, and just kind of seeing what it looks like in those rural areas.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'd been to Sofia, but I'd never been out into the Saranci Valley. So it was really, it was cool.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
Dan.
No, I was just going to say, I think you'll definitely hear complaints that they didn't touch Africa, they didn't go to South America, but I think by modern task standards, it's a pretty solid route. And if you look just at the surface level, at the country list, maybe it's not super inspiring, but I really loved all the individual places they went to within each country. I thought, Kyoto was incredible. I love that leg. And I mean, Dubai is Dubai, but Bulgaria, both of them were fantastic. I think the Portugal leg was incredible.
And I like that they did some really unique things in those places that they went to, in those destinations. Like, probably it's just a little moment of the race, but one of my favorite things this season was the teams trying to find the Klek shop in Sofia, because it's something so unique and something so distinctly Bulgarian that you wouldn't see anywhere else. And so I thought that was really, really cool.
And I love how Melinda kept getting the name wrong. She kept on being like, "What is a kelp shop?"
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And I was like, "Yeah, I agree. I have no idea."
No, I was just saying, I always appreciate too when my eyes are open to a new area that maybe, wasn't on my travel list. So when they went to Dubai, and you just see the view from when they're about to jump out of the plane. I'm like, look at that. I mean, and then the camel experience. I was like, maybe I do need to add that to my bucket list. So yeah.
There you go.
That's
I think
true.
I want to do that diving experience myself. That looked like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. I wish that wasn't the fast forward task, because, the more teams doing that would have been really epic. It was so cool. But what I was just going to say was, picking up on Dom. I mean, you're right that do I often moan? Yes, about the fact that I do feel that they don't go. Here we go. I'm going to do it. But they haven't been to Africa for, I think, something like 7 or 8 years, and it is really interesting seeing teams go to Africa. There's Morocco, the safari experiences in Tanzania, the deserts, the dunes of Namibia. I mean, there's so many places that I would like them to go back to. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that that they are missing Africa, and I'm not going to do any spoilers about other seasons that are coming up or anything, but they need to go back to Africa. And same goes for my continent, Oceania. I mean, Australia is got so many amazing parts to it, and it just hasn't been visited in such a long time. I'm not even going to say New Zealand, but they should come back to New Zealand. And also countries like Nepal and sort of Central and Western Asia, like Uzbekistan. I think the most recent Australian version has just been to Nepal and Uzbekistan, and we still haven't. So I'm sort of a bit like, come on.
Phil has said that has been on their list. I think that they've been trying to make it happen, from what I recall.
I think that's the case, especially with Nepal.
Maybe in the future one.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a question for you. What were your favorite tasks? What were your favorite tasks in season 37, would you say?
I'll go with an obvious one, the one that tripped up Nick and Mike, the haystack one. I thought something that was, I guess, kind of similar to the classic hay bale task was, I think the trick was, if you did what they did and just chucked it all on the floor, then it made it 10 times harder. Whereas you see like Melinda and Erica, they were just sort of like, they were grabbing at bits and then they found it pretty quickly.
And then by the time they had it all spread out, it was just like overwhelming seeing. I felt so bad for them. Oh my goodness, there's no way they're gonna find it now.
And I think one of them even said like they don't even know where theirs finishes and the others began. So it was you don't really see tasks like that get like harder the longer you stay there.
Yeah. I always love, again, where you have, like, I love in Bulgaria where, I mean, it didn't look like that hard of a task, but they had to go, was it a sheep or a cow? Or not a cow, a sheep, a goat? But then they had the little lady, 102, eating her yogurt. I'm like, I need some of that yogurt. I mean, she looked great for 102, and just them interacting. And then, was it Holden? He's like, can I wash my hands? I think I got poop on my hands. I'm like, oh gosh, how gross. But that's one that sticks out to me. Trying to think what else. I mean, I love the skydiving. I mean, that's kind of classic, like, adventure seeking, beautiful views.
I really liked the mandolin side of the detour in Naples. I thought that was really unique, and very unique that for a detour that only one partner could do a part of the mandolin at a time, and the other just had to stand there and watch.
And I love seeing a team that's in their elements. I know Jonathan and Anna's team, they've gotten a lot of heat throughout the season, but there were certain tasks throughout the season that you just saw him light up. And I made note of, like the drumming task when they were at the intersection, and then that task that he did with Anna, he just looked like he was in his element. So
it would have been really nice to see another team there to compare against.
I agree. That would
to see how fast he could have done it
for sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to say exactly what you said, Jade, was that the taiko drumming in Osaka, I think that's definitely one of my favorite challenges of the season, probably helped by the fact that it just switched up the order of those 12 teams so much. It was really, and also it was it was really difficult looking on the whiteboard and looking at the intricacy of what they had to actually achieve. It was a tough task. So I really love that one. And also shout out to Kyoto, to the shuriken, the ninja detour, and the what was the other one? The origami one.
Oh,
gosh, that was hilarious watching that.
So a question for you: Do you think they made it impossible on purpose?
Well,
and the task itself was to figure out when to give up.
I wish I could.
Point.
I mean, actually, yes. I mean, I don't know how that anyone was expected to, because also Scott and Laurie told me on their podcast that each team member had to get each one all in one go and within a time frame of like 30 seconds. So it was, I agree. It almost was impossible, and maybe that's, as you say, that's kind of what made it so hilarious, was seeing teams go. Some teams literally were like, they ran and they were like, no. And then other teams like Nick and Mike ended up doing, meditation, and then deciding.
Well, and then you saw Lissa and Josiah. I think they're just a team that they don't want to give up on something, and I can see that. Like, you commit to something, and you don't want to give up. But that's the thing about the race. You got to know when, okay, we just need to cut our losses. And
well, we saw that a few times with Alyssa and Josiah, and I think they were such an awesome team and such a great couple together. But we saw that a few times where they were committed, and it's good in life to have that driven sort of, okay, I'm not going to give up. But I think in the race, it reaches a point where you need to, okay, let's move on. Let's see what we can do to try and overcome this a different way. But we saw that with them, with the cheese tasting task in France, where I felt bad. You could feel the time slowing down of, okay, when do we use our express pass here or not? And then when they use it, they cut it real close.
And I totally can relate. Like, I'm like, okay, one more time. I can get it one more time. And then the pressure, though, is just, that's what gets to you. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we're planning to dive a bit deeper into each leg, aren't we? A bit later, but we've definitely taken up more time than we thought we would.
I can't wait to talk about the twists. I think next time we come on, we need to deep dive into that for sure.
Absolutely, we got lots to talk about.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us here on the TARHub Podcast. Visit the TARHub Discord group to connect with us, thousands of other fans of the amazing race, and even your favorite cast members. Find the link in the description below. Travel safe.